Welcome to Real Estate AI Flash, the show where AI goes from hype to habit. I'm your host, Rajeev Sajja. Each week, we make AI approachable and actionable for real estate professionals who want to stay ahead of the curve. From lead generation to listing presentations, from marketing strategy to client experience, you'll hear how top agents and industry leaders are using AI to work smarter, save time, and grow their business. So whether you're just getting started or already experimenting with AI tools, this podcast gives you ideas you can use right now. Now let's get to this week's special guest. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate AI Flash, and I have an international guest today. As a matter of fact, from New Zealand, I have Pat Lapalapa. He is the sales leader at Ray White AT Realty in Auckland, New Zealand. He's born and raised in Auckland with strong roots in South Auckland. And he is come to us from obviously New Zealand. And he reached out to me on Instagram, which is crazy. And he caught up with our podcast. And I asked him what he was doing with AI. And he was doing enough to get him as a guest on the show to talk about it so we can help AI become more approachable and actionable. Pat, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Rajeev.
Yeah, of course. Well, I gave you like a little quick intro. And just for the listening audience, talk us through your journey and how you got into real estate and bring us to today.
Yeah, I think a lot of my milestones throughout my career started with a bit of adversity. I've probably a lot of my team has heard my story multiple times, but I usually start the story where everything flipped. I suppose where my world flipped upside down, and that's back at university. So, university would be equivalent to your college over in the United States. So
Yeah.
I was about the age of 20, doing what obviously most of our parents would have told us to do. Go to university, get that paper or get that degree, and follow the right path. I was studying at Auckland University, working part time at this place called Fatima's, which is a sort of boutique fast food restaurant. So I was working there after lectures, picking up as many shifts as I could, still supporting my parents, and just basically grinding through that student life. One day I came home, and that's when everything changed. My parents sat me down and basically found them on the back doorsteps. Yeah, a bit emotional, really upset, and just found out the family home was going to mortgagee sale. So for me, they'd taken some advice, and obviously when I asked them questions about how this actually happened, taking some advice from a mortgage broker. I didn't even realize they had moved from a first tier lender down to a second tier lender. I'm not too sure what your equivalent would be over in the United States, but for my parents to move down to this second tier lender, it meant like obviously hiked interest rates. And my parents, obviously first immigrants to New Zealand, didn't have the education and weren't really made aware of what it meant to move from a main bank or a first tier lender down to a second tier lender. So yeah, that's basically how we ended up in that situation. Interest had piled up over a 2 year period, which my parents very proud Samoan people, Samoans. So for them, it was hard to sort of reach out. It come from that sort of culture where they don't like to sort of talk about their struggles. Um, in that moment, basically the timetable for lectures and degree had all faded into the background. Decided that I needed to pull out of university fairly quickly to make sure that we can save the family home. I could see the stress on their faces and realized that obviously no one was coming to save us. I'm the youngest of three brothers, so my brothers had already made the move over to Australia, which you referenced earlier. So it left me as the youngest child to obviously step in and try and obviously save the family home. I know most people probably wouldn't agree with that decision, but for myself, and my culture and my upbringing, it was to obviously serve our elders. I'm sure, Rajiv, you come from a very similar background where
Yeah.
we obviously make sure our parents and our grandparents are well looked after up until obviously they meet the man upstairs. So yeah, it came from obviously juggling lectures, casual shifts to basically saying to my manager at Fatima's, hey, I need every single hour I can get for the next like whatever it is. I just want to try and get as many shifts because I had reached out to a main bank, and I managed to get a personal loan just to cover the arrears for a 3 month period. And for that 3 months, I basically worked my ass off, to obviously try and save enough money to have a deposit and to save the family home. Um, that season taught me two big things. Was how to quickly turn your situation and to obviously understand the decisions that you're making around property and finance, and obviously that sort of put me onto a different path, as I was prior to obviously attending university. Um, I think the second biggest thing was it taught me that I never wanted another family in my community to go through um, a similar struggle. So it was just making sure that obviously when I got into real estate, I decided, okay, I want to be the advisor that my parents didn't have. I want to be obviously able to go in and advise people around their largest assets. So this has been my driving why. And I've now been in the industry for going on to 12 years. And I've never forgotten that every living room, every dining table that I've obviously gone onto or gone into, I've always remembered if this was my mom and dad, if this was my brother and sister, if this was a relative of mine, what advice would they want to hear? And what advice would I want my family to hear if I was in that living room? And sometimes it's come in the form of actually telling people not to sell their house.
Yeah.
It's come in the form of, hey guys, look, rather than selling your house, let's look at obviously building generational wealth for your family. Why not look at buying another property? You've got the equity to do so. Let's see how we can make this work for you guys. So your children, your grandchildren will obviously reap the benefits of all the hard work that you've actually put in.
Yeah.
And that's really how I got into real estate. It's come from a place of adversity, but I've turned that adversity into obviously something that I can serve the community and serve my people. And it's never really been about the houses for me. It's really been about the people and just serving the community. So it sounds a bit cliche there, but that's really been my driving why because it comes from my own personal experience, and that's how I got into real estate.
Yeah. Wow. I've never heard an adversity story. Every adversity has a seed of equal or greater benefit. Looks like you have kind of turned that around a little bit to for some lessons for yourself and how you can pay it forward to the communities you serve. So well said and well done. Um,
100%.
I,
Well,
I'm I,
It's
I'm curious, Pat. I'm curious. I mean, you're from New Zealand, so I usually don't ask my guests this question, but I'm curious. What are the home prices like in New Zealand? Like over the last appreciation? Is it appreciation? Just kind of talk through that, just a high level real estate update for New Zealand.
Yeah, so across New Zealand, we're probably at an average sale price of around 820. 820 give or take about 5%. In Auckland, and especially in my area, we came down from an average sale price in my area from about 986 during the boom back in the peak of the market. We're now down to about the 819, 815 area. So prices haven't dropped considerably. We've probably seen a lot less buyer foot traffic, but
Yeah.
the official cash rates have dropped, interest rates have dropped. Hasn't had a massive impact on the market, but we're hoping to see some change over the next 6 months to 12 months. But I'm no psychic, so I can't predict
Yeah,
what's
I
going to
hear you.
happen
I
in the
hear you.
future.
Well, okay, good. All right. Well, it is an AI podcast, so I want to kind of lean in a little bit to your first light bulb moment when you started using AI. What was that for you?
This was probably last year when I went to China. I I got sick of trying to research all these places,
Yeah.
and I thought, oh man, like trying to figure out my itinerary, trying to jot everything down on my notes, basically do a full plan. Sorry, mate. Do a full plan. So for me, that was my light bulb moment. I wonder where I can apply this into my professional. That's when I started doing a bit of research, and like most people, we probably all start around sort of Chat GPT. But then I started thinking, okay, how can I apply automation to obviously reduce the amount of hours and collapse time? I've heard that constantly throughout your podcast was trying to focus on collapsing time because we don't want the AI the AI is not going to take over us. It's going to help us be more productive. So for myself, that was my light bulb moment heading to China. Decided to get it to plan my whole trip, and it planned basically 3 weeks of my itinerary. It gave me multiple options. I wish I knew about the hallucinations back then,
Yeah.
because it gave me some restaurants that I should go to, and I'd turn up at the front door, and it was a closed shop, and I was like, okay, this is not right. And I probably went to multiple restaurants where it wasn't even open for business. So I wish I knew about hallucinations back then. But that was probably my first light bulb moment, was using it in my personal life, and then I've now applied it into my real estate business, and then obviously listening to your podcast. Mate, yeah, that was about 2 years worth of podcast, and I just crammed that into about 2 months of, yeah. Every time I went to the gym in the morning, I'd be listening to it like consistently.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I tell you, I think the information that we have access to, if somebody has the curiosity to learn, that's what inspired me of the fact that you discovered it. It doesn't matter which podcast. You found a podcast or resource. Like, I mean, on YouTube, I mean, I'm actually, I mean, I haven't finished this draft. I was going to do a big post on LinkedIn at the 3-year anniversary of ChatGPT as to how
Mm,
the last 3 years and who has been influential in my life for my sources, the podcasts I listen to, the people I follow, to quite frankly change the trajectory of my career in things to come in the future, stuff like that. So, to your point, I mean, all the resources, if you're listening to this podcast, the resources that are at your fingertips, whether it's YouTube, your podcasting, you just have to lean in, and listen,
100%.
learn, and go apply, not just learn. Like, knowledge is just potential power. Applied knowledge is power. And I think that's the important part. Learn, go apply. And curiosity is the number one principle I think you need to be mastering AI or any field in that as well. So cool. So let's kind of dig in a little bit, Pat, on specific use cases that you're seeing for your agents, for yourself, as far as all things real estate. What are some use cases? I know you mentioned you built some custom GPTs and things, wherever you
Yeah.
want to start.
I'll probably start off with data, the
Yeah.
data analytics. I
Yeah.
think using ChatGPT or even Gemini 3.0 is
Oh,
amazing. I bloody love it.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. The level that it's obviously improved by is amazing and astounding. So data is probably the first place I start. It's basically turning the data or just the hardcore numbers into a story. And I
Yeah.
think that's really where I've used the data analytics. And I haven't used it externally just yet. I've used it more internally, so within my own office, and it's been focusing on, okay, how can I become a heart surgeon in terms of how I tweak my all my salespeople or my agents? How do I tweak their business to focus on the parts they can, they're one percenters that they can focus on to improve their business going forward? Where I've turned that data and how it tells a story, I've now turned this into an interactive table on Gemini, which is, mate, it's like I've created a prospecting tool, and it tells me, mate, if you increase your letters or direct mail by 200 per week, this is where the influence is. And we've got all those conversion rates because we've got the data to tell us.
Yeah.
So it's using the data to give more sort of a visual impact and show them, mate, if you just do this, if you just change this, if you just tweak this by 50 door knocks, or you increase your calling by another 25 connects per week, this is what it has in terms of your business. This is what it would come out to. So it's really sort of giving them a visual picture in terms of what their data, what actually the story it tells, and how they can actually tweak their business. So it's been more from a data turning into storytelling, then turning that into coaching, and that's been influential in terms of my agents, in terms of their business. And it really, that's where I come back to in terms of the custom GPTs that we'd spoken about.
Yeah.
Um, I've used a mixture of custom GPTs and projects. So a
Yeah.
bit of a slight difference in terms of how I use projects. I use the projects more from the sort of admin side, and
Yeah.
my team, the engine, what we call them. So the engine in the background, and basically share them the project because it has that obviously full memory, and it doesn't hallucinate or find research outside of obviously all the information that we've uploaded. So we upload all our SOPs up into a project, obviously in terms of making decisions a lot quicker. where people are not waiting for my approval because basically my second brain is in that project because I've uploaded all my SOPs and how I would operate. Custom GPTs have been great for the agents.
Yeah.
Custom GPTs in terms of obviously, like you've mentioned before, with multiple guests alongside writing ads. But it's not just limited to ads, it's having appraisal assistants to
Yeah.
it collapsed their time. So where it took maybe half an hour to an hour to do the research in terms of finding comparable sales, it's now taking them possibly about 2 minutes.
Yeah. So
And
to
that's
double click on
basically,
before you proceed, to double click on a couple of areas you mentioned. One was using data to visualize business growth, right? Or where the levers to pull, what levers to sort of tweak. So, and this is personalized business growth data. That's one. Recently, you mentioned Gemini. Obviously, we're recording this late in the year, and the episode is dropping in February. So, who knows what the models will be in February when this episode comes out?
100%.
But Gemini 3, and has Nano Banana Pro image
Yes.
generator, where you could take market data and build a storytelling infographic. Literally,
Yes.
same thing, right? Again, the concept is same. Data to tell a story. To your point, that's a great application. I mean, Nano Banana is just bananas, man. I mean, I just started using it for a few days, and it is crazy the amount of, even for podcasts. You'll start to see this, Pat. So our 100th episode is dropped on December 3rd. Okay,
Yeah.
and Nano Banana has come out in like Thanksgiving time here in late November. So I simply upload the podcast transcript from Riverside, which is just text, like you and I talking, and I
Yeah.
upload your picture to Nano Banana, and I said, build me a key highlights infographic, and it literally drops your picture, a
Oh,
podcast like a microphone next to it. I'll
wow.
send you a graphic of one of the episodes. So we're going to start
Yeah,
doing that.
please.
We're going to start doing that for all podcast episodes after episode 100. Thanks to Nano
Wow.
Banana. Only because, not because I can't hire a designer, but it's just cumbersome, it's time consuming, money. But now I just drop it into Gemini and said, do this with these colors and these call to action, and voila, you have an infographic for size. So it's crazy what
Yeah,
you can do. I think the imagination is your only limitation you have with AI, right? In many
100%.
cases. So, and then the other one you talked about was besides the market data, the second one you talked about, we started building custom GPTs in certain areas, right? Can you dig into some of those areas that have helped your agents as well, that have collapsed time?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so basically it's a playbook in terms of how we run different sales methods.
Mm,
And for my drive, especially just coming into this role as of the start of last year, was to focus on recruitment.
yeah,
It has been driven towards recruitment, and I think in the current market, we probably don't have as many people joining the industry, and probably a lot of the older sort of generation has started to phase out of the industry.
yeah,
So now it's basically training up the new gen. And it does speed up their training in terms of obviously having a playbook in terms of different sale methods, what approach there should be, and obviously how to communicate better with the sellers. Obviously, a lot of that start period between that first month to the 6 month, I am with them, but this gives them that further boost just in case I'm not available for contact. So playbook is one for the different sale methods. Now we're big on auctions over here.
yeah.
I don't think you guys have auctions in.
Very little auctions. Yeah.
Okay, so auctions is probably about 70 to 80% of our business over here in Auckland,
Oh wow.
especially for our office. So majority of our business does go through the auction sale method. There's a process in place. We have a really good success rate. We're sitting between the 70 to 80% success rate when it comes to selling via auction. Most other agencies in our local area, even in the same time frame, they're probably selling around 30 to 40% in terms of their success rate. So we are double that success rate for across multiple agencies. But there's a process in place, and that's really what we're driven towards. So it gives them that playbook. The appraisal assistant has been probably the game changer for a lot of the
Mm,
team. So when I put out to the team, and I do this monthly, what takes up majority of your time? what are repetitive tasks. So we're trying to obviously dial those repetitive tasks into a custom GPT. The appraisal assistant seems to be obviously the one that's hitting the nail on the head. Um, it's also obviously coming up with, and my VA over in the Philippines sets up a lot of my content that goes out to the team as well. But I've got a custom GPT. She just uploads the data into it, and then she sends it to me for approval. I make a few minor tweaks, but that's about it. Majority of the time, she's just using that, and I do prefer that she tweaks it because Marjorie, who's over in the Philippines, has been amazing throughout the last couple of years. She's a vital asset of the team. Where we were probably looking at getting a second VA, I think the power of AI has
Yeah,
now saved us that further cost rather than obviously going to hire someone else. We're making that first VA a lot more productive. So
100%.
not
Yeah.
replacing her in the role, but making her job a lot more productive in her role.
Yeah. So
Um,
interestingly enough, compliance. I've heard a really good analogy of describing the progression you go through with AI. One is done by you. So you sort of go into AI, prompt something, and it sort of spits out. That's done by you. It's like very manual, but you use the power of AI. But you're the one doing it, right? The second phase is done with you. Like you build a custom GPT that sort of does most of it, but you still need to initiate it. Like upload your
yes.
compliance thing, done with you. And then the third category, I think we'll see a lot more of this in 2026 and beyond, is done for you. So
Mm.
it's sort of AI agents that trigger as soon as they see a new doc in a folder, it triggers a work process that just it finishes the whole thing. And it's sort of like I don't know if you have autonomous driving cars in New Zealand. Do you have them?
Yeah, we do. Probably not as much variety in New
Yeah,
Zealand. We
yeah,
probably
yeah,
only have
yeah.
the Tesla. That's about it.
It's like the
Th-
analogy I give. I mean, people can't comprehend that AI can do start to finish, and I think that's
yeah,
a place we all are today. But when I bought my first car, like late in 1990, I could not have imagined that there'll be self-driving cars that I'll sit in and pay the car for taking me somewhere, like Uber. So I think that's
100%.
the phase that we're sort of going through. We're just bought our car with AI. Now we're going to sort of eventually trust it to do more as we sort of give it more tasks. It does it well. So I think we're going through that journey. And custom GPTs are like done with you type of stuff. We're sort
Yeah.
of we're pushing the envelope a little bit more. So that's good examples,
That
really good examples. So
Well, that sort of ties in the innate in. I've been sort
yeah,
of diving into that. Yeah, I've been diving into obviously automations around that. So I've been looking and basically doing a bit of research in, and I had make.ai last year when I was using that as a part of, and I used it in a very basic format. I used it for completing forms. I
yeah,
wish I had used it to the effect that, like, obviously most people are using it today. NAN's like next level, just obviously having the AI agenda, and it's amazing what the future's gonna turn out to be. And I still think the human side is obviously still going to be there. I just
100%.
think obviously with obviously the AI coming in, it's just going to make us all a lot more productive. And I think it allows our agents, and not just real estate industry, allows us to have those more personal, humanized conversations and the high dollar productive activities, because ultimately people are not going to just trust the AI when they're dealing with someone. They want to deal with someone face to face, and
100%.
I
100%.
think that aspect will never disappear.
Yeah, 100%. I do think that the people that leverage AI effectively, they'll get the time back, right? We talk about
Yes.
collapsing time. They get the time back so they can actually go deeper with human connection and build those
Mm,
relationships. So you'll have time to build relationships. So I think that is still the biggest value add from people. And the challenge some agents have is they have to invest time to get the time back, and they're not investing the time. Like some
yeah.
of our listeners, right? And they're early in the journey, and we're just 3 years into ChatGPT. So I think
Mm,
the gold rush is still on. And I do
yes.
think that it is only going to get better. I can't imagine what Gemini 3 did to the AI world just with one drop. I mean, we still are, early. All these models are just racing to the finish line, if there's a finish line. So
Eh, have you tried that fall.ai? That that's a pretty, and I found this through a social media guru who does filming. It basically has Nano Banana, and you go to one place, and you can basically, and for like the sake of like 0.03 cents, you can basically make images, and it has all the different image creations, text to image, image to video. I've had a trial of that actually just in the last couple of days, and man, it's there's a lot of choice on there where
Yeah,
you can trial all of these out.
that's awesome. Yeah, send me a link. I'll check it out. I think I've heard of it, but there's a lot of these. I call it wrapper AI tools, because what we're
Yes.
all paying is we're paying the $20 a month for UI interface to the large language model, and we may
Yeah.
not be leveraging all the $20, right, a month.
Yeah.
As little as that amount sounds, because of the price per token. So, like
Yeah.
Perplexity is a good example of that. It gives you access to
Yes.
some language models, and some are doing with images, some are even doing with the video. So there's a lot of these wrapper things that are going to come up, and eventually, I think over time, I think brokerages will build their own AI solutions that an agent logs into and gives them the easy button, and it will pick the model to do the thing, and you don't even know which model, right? I mean, I think that's where we're going with all this. So yeah, I'd love to
I
love to
agree.
see that. Love to see that. If you can send me that, that'd be great. So what else are
Yeah,
you using
100%.
it
I will.
for? Where do you see it going?
Um, I probably agree with you, everything that you've sort of mentioned as well. The direction it's going is going to be towards automation,
Yeah,
collapsing time mostly. I think the app building seems to obviously where a lot of businesses will be able to sort of utilize this as incorporating all instead of going to like let's say five different language models like you just said,
yeah.
basically just having one app to obviously control everything. I think that's really going to be the direction that it takes. Yeah, what I would love to obviously see in terms of what I would love to see in terms of AI. Well, not so much as AI. I think if someone has taken the journey, and I know your playbook's really good for this, I think it's just a place to start. And your instructions for ChatGPT. Oh man, that's gold. I sent this out to the wider team. I
Yeah.
said, guys, like if you have like if you want to make a change in your life, one instruction just to add into your settings for ChatGPT will obviously make everything so much better for your business. And the amount of feedback, I was like, oh man, I actually got it from this show. You guys should listen to this guy. This guy's Rajeev's onto it, the Real Estate Flash AI. So I love the podcast.
Appreciate it.
Um, in terms of like where else we're using it has been around content as well.
Yeah.
And trying to dig into it more. For me, it's a little bit overwhelming, to be fair.
Yeah.
I know you use it religiously, but man, I'm still sort of finding my footing in this. It's just around how to create content, but where it doesn't turn into just AI videos and then we lose engagement. So it's trying to find a bit of a balancing act around it. That's probably been the biggest thing,
I
but I
think I
still
think
haven't
what we'll
found.
also find, Pat, going into 2026 and beyond, we'll find tools that become easier to use, so it's not
Yes.
as overwhelming. I think a lot of times when we start to embrace an AI tool, especially if you want to do something of high quality, you feel
Yeah.
like you've gotten like 80%, 90% there, but you feel like the last 10% is hard to climb.
Yeah.
Um, right? And I think that will be simplified over time with tools like N8N. Google, I mean, if you are starting a company or if you're on a Google workspace, you have a
Yeah.
plethora of tools there that I think, like even with the AI Studio,
Oh,
you,
100%.
right? You can build an app now.
It's
I think
crazy.
that will become easier and easier. And especially if you operate in the Google ecosystem, it just becomes so easy to fire up things that trigger things or based on certain events. And I think beyond automation, I also see integration of company resources and data becoming a little
Mm,
easier to enable such automations happening.
yeah.
Like when a lead comes in, the voice AI agent picks it up and just calls somebody and does all those things, I think is part of what we're going to see.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
100%. I
So,
think
yeah.
the a lot of the voice, the calling, the AI calling, I think a lot of it doesn't feel too safe for a lot of people. So they're testing it on the obviously the lower risk. For example, calling cold leads or
Yeah,
people that are looking to buy. I think a lot of people are not testing it out onto obviously talking to sellers. I
yeah,
think that at this stage, just keeping it low risk.
yeah, for sure. So, anything else before I get to my final two questions that I ask all my guests?
Probably the other one that you brought up, and I never really thought about it, was having a thought partner.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so that's been a massive game changer for me in terms of strategy. Especially obviously just only been in the role now for just under 2 years. I was really trying to look at, okay, I really need to try and put my thoughts out there and have it ask me certain questions, remove the niceties and just be straight come straight to me and obviously just ask me questions how I can obviously improve my role and improve as obviously as a leader. Another obviously area that I've used the custom GPT was I actually taken your framework to create custom GPTs. So I've created the prompting. I think prompting is can be a little bit confusing. So what I've done is I've created a custom GPT using your framework, and this is basically how I create my prompts because prompting can be obviously for a lot of people daunting to obviously create going forward.
Dan, looks like we got cut off again. Okay, Pat.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, your video froze. So we can still continue because I think it's just the iPad. Can you see me okay?
Yep, I can see.
Okay, all right, no worries. I think let's just repeat the last statement you made and then we'll continue. Dan will just clip it.
Yeah. So custom GPT is another part that I think has been daunting for a lot of people that are just entering the arena for AI, is prompting. I've actually used your framework as the custom GPT
Mm.
to create those prompts. So basically, someone puts in what they're wanting to achieve. The custom GPT uses your framework to obviously create the prompt for them. I think that's probably a big one.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, over time we'll start to look at, we'll have these light bulb moments, sometimes you feel like, oh, you know what? I can use AI for that. When you don't think about those things till you start getting into it. And I think to your point about strategic thinking and partnership, the AI driven leader, there's a book that I read not too long ago called From Jeff Wood. He's the one that
Mm,
quoted saying, "You're the thought leader. AI is your thought partner." And I think that mindset has kind of made it a big unlock for me as well. So that's a
yeah.
good takeaway right there. So in closing down our podcast, I'd love to ask all my guests a couple questions. The first is, you've been in real estate how long now? Like
About 12 years
12 years. Okay. So if you were to start the business today, what would your advice be to your younger self, Pat?
to my younger self. I think one, don't confuse being busy with making progress is probably a big
Yeah,
one for
great
me.
advice.
Uh, like we can pretend like we look busy, and especially with social media these
Yeah,
days. Uh, the fake it till you make it. I think really we need to look at what actually moves the needle, and it's just having more seller conversations. That'll
100%.
be obviously my focus in my first year. Master the fundamentals. I think before chasing the hacks. I think focusing on the scripts, the communication, negotiation, but being obviously having your why, and I obviously go back to that. Remember your why as to when you're going to meet sellers or potential clients. That seems to obviously help me a lot. And then I think the last one is I'm trying to remember James Clear's
Atomic Habits.
line. Yeah, Atomic Habits. He says this line. Oh man, this is gonna piss me off. It's something about your like rather than focusing on the goals, you fall back to the level of your systems. I think it
Yeah,
was,
you're right. No,
and
you're
I think.
you're onto something. Yeah, I remember reading that stuff. Yeah, but that's a great book
Can't
as well.
remember the line exactly, but that would be obviously building systems early, so you don't burn out later.
Yeah.
I think that's been a big one, and I had a meeting or a vision meeting that I run quarterly with my team. Last Friday we had one, and it was focusing more on alignment. rather than obviously trying to focus on this work-life balance,
Yeah.
which is obviously bullshit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I think obsession leads to obviously a burnout phase, which I don't want my team to go out. So I was more focusing on alignment, working efficiently, and having systems in place. I think
100%.
those are the three big key factors that I'll give to myself. Back when I was 23 years old, when I first joined, I'll
Yeah.
definitely tell myself that.
Yeah. No, well said. Well said. And the next one is, I mean, I don't know if are you a book or a podcast person?
I'm an audiobook person.
Okay. So is there one book that you would want people listening to the show reading because it has had the biggest impact in your shaping who you are today?
Um, I wish I read this earlier. And I've only just read it over the probably last year as well.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Tuesdays with Maury?
No, I haven't.
So not around AI or tech or
Yeah, of course,
anything.
yeah.
It's not around real estate. It's more so around obviously mental and I think being present. Basically, Tuesdays with Maury is about an old professor. His student goes to visit him. He's on his deathbed and he starts to focus on the things that really matter in life.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think for me, living at the moment, being present, and especially with your family, your kids, your friends, your loved ones, I think that's a big focus for me going forward as well as being present. I've been there present physically, but being present there spiritually and mentally, I
Yeah.
think has been the focus going forward, especially with AI and obviously real estate can be quite a demanding role.
Yeah.
It is your own business and you're so heavily focused in the work that you get home, you're answering phone calls, you're answering emails. I think it's really now the time, especially with AI out there, while it collapses time to help you improve your business. I think this is also allows you to have that extra time with your family and loved ones to be present in the moment and living in the moment as well. So Choosers with Maury by Mitch Albom, definitely a good book to read. I'm not really an emotional guy, but man, that almost brought me to tears towards the
Yeah.
end. So it's a pretty touching book. But yeah, sorry, man, not really a real estate
No, it
type
doesn't have to be. It doesn't
inspirational.
have to be.
Yeah,
And that question didn't have to be real estate, AI, nothing. Whatever has influenced you, I'm sure will help many of our listeners as well. Pat, this has been fun. I appreciate you,
thank you.
reaching out and staying connected to Instagram, give me a sneak peek into your journey with AI for us to make this happen on the show. And I hope at some day, I will say that I hope to meet you in person real soon.
100%. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it, Rajeev.
Always. If you found value in this episode, follow the show so you're notified every Wednesday when new episodes drop. Share it with someone in the industry and leave us a review as it helps us reach more professionals like you.